Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Doctor. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. It's actually sunny, since I know a lot of you guys who are actually in the Pacific Northwest have been giving me a little bit of a hard time on this. And today we're going to be talking about the new guild battle map, the Ancient Ruins, that has the map effect up, dark attack up. We're going to be going through almost every single unit, placing them on a tier list, and I'll be talking about why I placed them and what specifically makes them either good or bad for this guild map to help prepare any of you guys who might be ready to head into this. I know if you were like me when they just released the previous guild map, I definitely didn't go as in-depth as I should have, and I definitely struggled as a result, and I don't want to make that mistake going into this guild map. If you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, and without further ado, we're actually going to start on the main page here, and we're actually going to look at the map as a whole. And the most important thing to know about this map here are these stones right here. These, the sort of raised pillars in the center, are going to be pivotal to the type of characters that are going to succeed in this map, and it's going to make a lot of attacks ineffective. We saw in the last map how sort of having a really high cliff could affect the abilities that your units use, and that is no different here. Those sort of raised cement pillars are a height of 2, which means that you would have to have a height of 2 attack to hit units on that, and that's going to drastically affect what units gain advantage from that and what units are going to succeed on this map. So as we transition here to what I would call the S tier, there's going to be a couple common trends that we're going to be talking about. One of them is going to be jump 2, and one of them is going to be range height 2 attacks. So what I mean by a range height 2 attack would be like Victoria using her jump. Her jump ability is going to hit an enemy that is standing on two height levels above her, whereas her horizontal jump attack isn't going to be able to hit that jump ability way up there. So units that have certain attacks that are geared towards range height 2 are going to have an advantage in this map. And there's a couple different ways they can have an advantage. If they are able to step on top, let's say they have jump 2, and they are able to step on top of the pillars or on top of the raised platform, they're going to get a critical hit rate bonus, and they're going to be more heavily protected from units who only have range height attack 1, because they're going to have to actually get up on their level or elevated once on the step in order to deal damage to your units. Another common trend here is you're going to see that elemental type advantages versus earth and light are going to thrive here. The only light unit we have on this S tier list is going to be Thancred, and we'll talk about why. And of course, I think it's pretty obvious with the dark element attack up, but there's also some defense piercing capabilities of Venera, which is going to make Engelbert sort of on the lower tier, and I think you could make an argument that Ramza is going to be S tier. I think, though, most people are not going to have the capability to build him that way, and they're probably going to be relegated to about an A tier Ramza. You're going to see a lot of magic casters on this list, and you'll notice that we have Salir on here, we have Adelard on here, we have Lilith on here. Magic casters are going to be excellent in terms of this map, because almost all magic is cast at range height 2, which means that you're going to be able to cast magic on units that are on higher elevation than you, or you're going to be able to cast magic on units that are on elevation lower than you. So you are going to be able to position your mages into that sort of safe zone. One important note here about Gilgamesh, and this is for any unit who has a base jump of 1 like Stern, you are going to have to put jump plus, or sorry, not Stern, Sid. You're going to have to put some sort of jump plus to really get the maximum benefit out of these units. For Gilgamesh, he actually has auto float, which gives him jump plus 1. So that will work for Gilgamesh, and he's the only unit that is actually going to need quote-unquote auto float to actually succeed here, and that is a passive ability. For Sid, you're going to have to place his jump plus 1. So keep in mind that all of these units that are placed here in the S tier are placed here almost because they have access to plus 2 jump and can move easily in this map. All of the dark units that are here are of course here because they have the darkness type advantage. I would say, of course, Venera with her defense piercing is going to be probably your #1 pick. I think Ziza actually is kind of a mixed bag because Ziza does have jump 2, but all of her attacks are only range height 1, and that's of course going to be a little bit of a drawback, but she has the bonus that she's a fist unit, and she's the only non-slashing unit out of all the dark units that we have currently. Potentially you could make an argument that Stern with Sub-Dragoon is technically a piercing unit, but I think for the most part you're going to be seeing Ziza used for her fist ability. Stern, of course, Sub-Dragoon with his jump is going to have access to range height 2 attacks. He's also going to have jump 2, which means he's going to be able to traverse the ground easily. Medina, having access to Shikuchi, is also going to be able to move quite easily across this map, and I think she's going to be kind of sleeper powerful. I think if you're going to go for an evasion type build, if you're going Venera, you would actually elect to put Medina in your composition as opposed to Shadow Lynx, and you would probably run something like Venera, Medina, Ayaka potentially, or Medina, Venera, Ketone could actually be very powerful. You can see though that Ketone is not on the S tier list here. That's of course because of her Earth element with Lucia still in the meta. Sharpshoot is going to decimate her, so I thought she was kind of appropriately placed in the A tier. Rain and Adelard are here, and so are Miranda because of access to Jamming Thrust. Jamming Thrust is a range height 2, 5 space attack, which is going to be very powerful here. Of course, the trend we've kind of seen is that guild maps and arena maps tend to really focus on units who were newly released, and since we just had Rain released, it makes sense that Jamming Thrust being a range height 2 attack is going to be really powerful right now. Sid is kind of a mixed bag here. I almost want to say Sid could be A tier, but he's so powerful I think he's just automatically S tier no matter what. All of his attacks are range height 1. So the problem with Sid is that he's not going to be able to attack units that are way lower than him. However, with access to jump +2, he is going to be able to close that gap quite quickly, and he's not going to be forced to following a certain sort of route, or he's going to be able to just run up and get on the elevation of the opponent. Lucia S tier because of Sharpshoot. You're also going to notice that I have Lilith here as well. Sharpshoot is going to be so powerful, especially against Venera. I did take Frederica off this list, but I think you could actually make an argument for Frederica being an S tier. I just feel like Lucia has more power with that defense penetration, and Lilith has more advantage with her type advantage against ice units, because you are going to see a lot of Medinas, you are going to see a lot of Victoras, and particularly on this map as well, Victoria is going to be very powerful along with Nasha, especially with the release of dark units, an ice-based tank in a meta where we have Lucia and where we have lots of dark-based bonus attacks. Nasha is going to be your best tank no matter what, unless you have an Evasion Venera. Thancred, being the only light unit on this list, is going to be here because he has access to jump, and I think he's going to be, because of his range height 2 attacks, he's actually going to be pretty viable. And I think he's going to be sort of far enough away, and he's going to be jumping enough of the time not to draw the attention of too many of the dark attackers. Let's talk about A tier and B tier. I put Whisper on the A tier because she lacks access to jump +2, and she doesn't have very many range height 2 attacks. Now, of course, her advantage here is going to be her dark element attacks. I actually think, though, she might be at a better advantage being Sub-Samurai, because being Sub-Samurai grants her access to Hien. You're going to notice there's lots of Samurais on this A tier list, so that's going to be Sir Rob, it's going to be Sir O. And the reason Hien is important is because Hien is a range height 2 attack, so you are going to be able to attack enemies from down below, even if you are not able to get up on their tier. Ramza I put here because, well, I think Ramza is similar to Thancred. I think Thancred has stopping power, whereas Ramza doesn't have the capability to kill units in one hit most of the time. He does have Ultima, which is going to be a 100% accuracy attack, but it's not going to be the same as sort of a one-hit KO ability. It's really up in the air. I think you're going to see a lot of Ramzas coming up that are going to be really like lower than B tier, because they're not going to be performing as expected and they're just going to get shredded by dark units. Or I could see them performing at S tier, where they're going to be popping Ultima, or they're actually going to get some lucky hits off on Venera. It's going to be really interesting to see how Ramza performs, and I think it's really going to be player skill based. That's why I put him in A tier. Ketone is A tier simply because we have a lot of Lucias in the meta where their sharp shots are going to one-shot her. My Lucia one-shots almost all Ketones. That's going to be kind of the reason they're there. She has a hard counter, unlike Venera. Of course, Freyevia would actually probably be S tier right now if it weren't for her AI issues. We're going to leave her at A tier. Her Curaga is going to be very powerful here, though. Frederica, I didn't feel like... Sorry, I called Freyevia Frederica. Now we're talking about Frederica. Frederica, I feel like, doesn't have the stopping power, and Engelbert, of course, is going to be hard countered by Venera on this map. For B tier, Mont, of course, getting hard countered by Lucia. We're going to have... I put Ryu and Gafgarion here because Ryu actually has a lot of problems when you start having range height in the equation. He's not going to be able to have that move or that jump in order to position himself, and gunners actually can't shoot downward or upwards very high. Most of their attacks are only range height 1, which is really going to limit his attack options on this map. Gafgarion, very similar to Sid, except he doesn't have that jump +1, so he's going to be limited by that range 1 height attack, and of course he doesn't have the highest movement, which is really going to relegate him down to B tier, even though he has a darkness type advantage on this map. Similar story with Yerma and Eileen. Some of the common trends you're going to see here are going to be jump 1, range height 1 and 0, earth and light element, and low movement or low jump. Let's talk about some useful cards. The Shadowbringers card for darkness resist is of course going to be useful. There's going to be lots of people bringing Sterns, lots of people bringing Veneras. It's just going to be a darkness smorgasbord. If you have this, it's going to be a very powerful card to employ for defense. Birth of New Life, as well as Secret Feelings if you have Secret Feelings. Any luck plus card is probably going to help you in terms of evasion or accuracy, and we're entering into an evasion meta with Venera coming out. There's going to be probably an advantage in your guild if one of your guildmates starts to prepare for Venera comps. So that's going to be a guildmate who maybe changes their entire composition to focus just on fighting evasion units and Venera. Because if you have sort of a guild that is not focused on sharpshoot or not focused on accuracy, you could have an evasion Venera composition defend against 10 opponents before you actually take them out. So if you're running guild battles, if you're coordinating, you need to make sure you're calling out the Venera compositions and you're having an anti-evasion team on your guild battle team. Almost all darkness units are slash attack, and it's kind of going to be a slash attack meta as well as pierce attack meta. I would say Iron Giant is always a go-to. Same with Cleansing the Mind. There's going to be a lot of sharpshooting going on as there's evasion in the meta currently. I would say both of these cards, as they were kind of before, are going to be your bread and butter. You're going to be using them a lot. You could, of course, if you have the new Mobius card, use the shooting resistance from the Mobius card. I think these cards are going to be pivotal, and if you don't have them leveled, you should definitely be looking at investing in them. In terms of Espers, stay away from Iron Giant and Tetrasilphid. Unless you're running a full evasion comp, Tetrasilphid is going to cause you problems with her ice weakness, with the amount of Victoras that are in the meta right now. And Iron Giant has innate darkness weakness. Yes, he does have nodes that can increase dark resistance, but it's not going to be worth it. It would be much better just to equip any other unit. In terms of the best right now, I would recommend Odin or Golem. Odin, of course, for Maneater, and you could do slash resistance or missile resistance. Golem for the raw defense. Even though there's a lot of Lucias, I think Golem is worth it for the amount of defense and Maneater you can get from him, as well as the amount of HP. Siren for slash resistance. I think we're going to see a lot more Sirens paired with Rain here in the near future. Another reason why you might shift to a piercing meta if you do have piercing units. And of course, Ifrit. In my case, I use Ifrit for piercing attack, but there's many people who still use Ifrit for missile resistance and attack plus. Either of those is going to be very viable and would be a very good way to go if you're planning for your guild battles. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I am very grateful. Make sure you drop a comment down in the YouTube section. Come check out our Discord at dig.gs/discord. If you are planning on buying Visior from Venera, make sure you use my affiliate link, dig.gs/coins. You can buy Amazon coins using my affiliate link, and it's the #1 way to support me. It also saves you money on Visior, and it saves you anywhere between 10 and 20%, depending on how much you purchase. and it's just a really good way to go if you're planning on spending this money in the game anyway. Thank you so much, everyone. I do stream every night except for Monday and Thursday, and on Tuesdays I do stay up till reset, so maybe I will see some of you guys tonight. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.